Good afternoon, everybody. This is Michael Bracy, welcoming you to Music Cities Together Live. Today is Friday, October 30th. We had hoped that today's program was going to be focusing on the music and culture of New Orleans. As you may know, New Orleans got hit by a hurricane this week. Our guests don't have power, and so we're going to have to bring them back another week. But we've put together a really amazing show that is very timely, as you will see. And why don't we start off with some music? Alex, let's get this started.
The self-made man with the brand name watch, the fame fever and the fast lane pox, crowns himself Caesar and the known world scoffs, but if we can't beat him, the whole thing's lost. Tyranny, 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 tyranny. The Oval Office of the locker room. Water cooler gossip, propaganda, or the honest truth. It all depends on who you're talking to. The Paris Accord, fuck it, pardon my French, don't really parlez-vous. Cut the EPA, added to better hurricane. Keep Kellyanne, Stakal, and Conaway. Got the fourth estate trade war. Yeah, of course mistakes were made. Paid for by good people on both sides. So they got a torch and a chance and a hand sign. Our reports say we still got a chance in a landslide. You're short on mirrors, low on smoke. All that hydroxychloroquine cut with Diet Coke. Under oath and unprovoked, I think your dog was so broke, cause we can all hear it. Post a white power clip, claimed you missed what they were cheering. Hearing's fine, so you must be hard of spirit. Running interference, cap lock on, spell check off. The Teflon Don gets his feelings hurt by basketball. United Nations gets a stand-up show. Your race relations is a taco bowl. This is not partisan. I think reasonable people can disagree, but nobody stuck on a wall likes the way that things end. It goes all the king's horses and all the king's men. Tyranny, 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 tyranny. Tyranny, 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 tyranny.
There you go. We're just going to put that on loop for the next 50 minutes, and it'll be the best show we ever had. That, of course, is the incomparable Dessa. Dessa, thanks for joining us for a minute at the front of the show.
Absolutely.
Great to see you, as always. Yep. What a, what are you going to say about that? Just timely. We visited with you earlier this year and just talked about one of the things that we really you touched on was that artists want to make art, people want to create, and we just have so much appreciation for that particular piece, again, as we head through a really complicated year. I know you can just join us for a minute at the front of the show, taking a break from recording. Thanks for popping in. Talk a little bit about the song, about the video, about, I like the cats coming down the stairs too. The song, the video, and some of the outreach efforts that you're doing associated with it.
Yeah, so I'm based part-time in Minneapolis and part-time in New York, and I think, like a lot of other artists, part of the campaign is just to continue to ask people who are in our communities, in our arts groups, essentially, to make the time to do the thing, and also because the instructions are more onerous this year than they have been in other years in a lot of ways, and the importance of making a voting plan is more important now than it has been in years past. So there's just a heck of a lot of information to share. So for me, in trying to make a persuasive track, it was really important to not focus on the way that Trump talks or the way that his body looks, because I think there are plenty of other and better reasons to vote him out of office. So for us, I think trying to stay high, keep it evidence-based. So part of our campaign around that track was to, with its release, create an annotated Genius page where people can go and click on a lyric to see journalism that substantiates each objection in turn, So that was part of the campaign for that little. Essentially, it's a get out the vote video. It's barely a full song length, but we dropped it just a couple of days ago, yeah. And now as you may know, in Minnesota, last night we had a circuit court decision indicate that ballots received after Election Day will in fact not be counted. And we had been assured that they would be until last night. So there's a big informational campaign today to try to advise people who've either been planning on voting by mail to in fact drop their ballots off instead. And if you have already voted by mail in the past couple of days, to consider tracking your ballot, canceling it, and visiting the polls in person instead.
Well, we know you have to go back to your session. We just really appreciate you dropping in and saying hi. And Alex is going to put the link to the video in the chat if y'all haven't a chance to see it. And
thank you so much.
There. Yep, as far and wide as possible. And
the last thing that I'd say is that today proceeds from the sale, like on Bandcamp of that track, are all going to headcount.org. Thank you for that recommendation. Awesome. We appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dessa.
Have a great session. Okay. Bye-bye.
So let's start again. Welcome to Music City Together Live. Today's, as you know, Friday, October 30th. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about politics than we typically do. We talk a lot about policy on this program. We talk a lot about what's happening at multiple levels of government and how the public sector impacts the music community, not only in this most complicated of years, but more broadly. And as I said at the beginning, for those of you who are late, we were hoping this week to be focusing on New Orleans as part of our national tour of cities that we've been doing over the last month. As you probably know, New Orleans got hit with a hurricane, another storm this week. And so out of respect to our dear friends who have lost power and are trying to get their city cleaned up, we're going to reschedule the New Orleans conversation for later in November. But we have a great show today, and we're going to be talking in a little bit to Tim Tuten from Chicago and the Hideout. We're going to be talking later in the show to DJ Ambush from Portland is going to be joining us to talk about the work he's doing with Music Portland and with his community radio station. And we just, as always, are so appreciative that you're taking time on your busy Friday to join us. Again, if you have questions throughout the show, please pop them in the Q&A window. We'll get to as many questions as we can. If you have comments, suggestions, feedback, other things that you feel like you would like to share with us, you can always hit us at musicpolicyforum@gmail.com. And again, thanks as always to our producer, Alex Dolvin, who will be putting relevant links and other information into the chat window as we go through these conversations. So I want to say something before we bring our next guest in, before we bring Tim in, that I just think is really important to emphasize, because again, this is election season. We are talking about politics. We just showed that dynamic video by Dessa. And I want to be clear that music should not be a partisan political issue. And typically it has not been a partisan political issue. We have had champions of music at all levels of the government that are Democrats. We've had champions that are Republicans. Certainly in terms of work here in Washington, D.C. around public policy, issues like we never would have created 1,000 new radio stations through low power radio if it hadn't been for 10 years of very, very consistent work from John McCain and from Lee Terry in the House of Representatives. We would have lost that issue in committee if we didn't have the support of Sam Brownback. Right now, again, with the Save Our Stages campaign, it would not be as far advanced as it is if it was not a bipartisan campaign, if we didn't have people like John Cornyn in the Senate supporting the effort. And conversely, we look at issues in Washington that deeply impact the music community that have not been bipartisan and that's been to the issue's detriment. You see the pendulum going back and forth on net neutrality to a large extent because it's become a partisan issue instead of a nonpartisan issue. But I do think, to be honest and to be fair, this election as it relates to music is different, because while there is widespread nonpartisan support for music-related and cultural-related issues on Capitol Hill and at governor's offices and local electeds, what we've seen from this administration is a consistent and thorough effort to undercut issues and policies of importance to music. There have been proposals to eliminate public broadcasting. There have been proposals to kill the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities. There's been the complete dismantling of network neutrality. There have been efforts to undermine the Broadcast Board of Governors taking place right now. This has been consistent and it's been thorough. and it's really been a little bit overwhelming. And so again, for those of you watching this program who do have different political opinions that are going to be expressed today, we certainly respect you, and we want you in our community, and we don't want you to feel like you're not welcome in these conversations. And you may want to just turn your computer off for the next 50 minutes, because we are going to be talking politics, and we are going to be talking about politics more or less from more of a progressive spin. So with that being said, I am thrilled to bring in our next guest from the Hideout in Chicago and other hats that he wears, Tim Tuten. Tim, thanks for joining us. Are you still with us there? I see a black screen.
Oh,
there he is.
I'm
hey,
sorry.
Tim
I guess
Tuten.
I had the power to unmute myself.
There it is.
We're controlling that. I thought
no,
it was
that's you.
Rules.
That's you. So, Tim, we're going to kick off your segment. Actually, I'm going to have Alex play one more clip real quick. Tim and his spectacular and wonderful wife, Katie, and their legendary venue, the Hideout in Chicago, is one of the main threads of a brand new docuseries that premiered last night on National Geographic TV channel, is now, as of this morning, on Hulu. It is called City So Real. Alex, if you can run the trailer for that, let's take a quick look at what this program's all about. And then that'll be a great frame, Tim, to start our conversation.
Hello? Yes, I'm doing a documentary right now. Could you please give me a call back?
What do I think about the city? I actually love it and hate it.
That's Chicago, bro.
Yes, all one big happy family.
The cries and the complaints of the people are ignored and neglected. If Jason Van Dyke is found guilty, he will be the first Chicago police officer convicted of murder. Who you serve? Who you protect? Who you protect?
What is necessary for Chicago is a vision, actual solutions for the issues we face.
Lori Lightfoot senses a late surge and has won the endorsement of progressives.
It is a breeding ground for corruption.
What do we do?
That happens every time one of them get killed. They riot.
It breaks my heart. I got a room full of beautiful black children, and they're all trying to get out.
But this guy pulled up on the side of me and called me a black bitch.
You can't say anything without someone being offended.
Nobody's born racist, it's taught.
I have no tolerance for sexual harassment.
Well, you
Zero
tolerated
tolerance.
for 6 months.
Would you please let me finish?
I wanna be stronger.
Chicago is often called the Great American City.
Well, I didn't know economic development looked like more investment in jails, policing, and mass incarceration.
Move away.
All voices. One Chicago, indivisible and united for all.
We are fighting for our lives.
So that's something, huh?
Yeah, that's something.
It must be exciting to see. I know that Steve James, and for those of you who are documentary fans, know his work going back all the way a long time ago to Hoop Dreams. But just program and film and program after film, and the whole team at Cartemquin in Chicago, just a global treasure of nonfiction storytelling, and they spent a bunch of time sort of incubated inside of their hometown, inside of Chicago, to try to tell a story of Chicago. Very similar to how we talk about ecosystems, talk about the interconnected nature of all of our sort of communities and businesses and government, and just how that, everything just really fits together. And so the Hideout and Tim, you and Katie are a big part of that story in City So Real, which again debuted on last night on National Geographic, is on Hulu as of today. And I think one reason they did that is because Hideout is very indicative of what an ecosystem is and a community, center is, So tell us a little bit about the Hideout. Let's just start there. What is the Hideout for those of us who haven't had a chance to come to Chicago and spend time there?
Thanks, Michael. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to discuss here, because it's a big city, it's a big country. There's a lot going on, right? And so they're like, whenever I hear a question or whenever I'm talking to somebody, I try to pull from them like certain things they say so that I could respond specifically to a phrase they made, right? So first thing I'll just say is, I was not in that trailer you just saw, which I didn't know you were going to show it, but I'm glad you did. The series is on now. It debuted last night. You could hear my voice, okay? You didn't see me in that trailer, but I'm like the one, Chicago's the great American city. And that is that I didn't know, I have nothing to do with the production of the film. That was all Steve and Zach Piper and Kartemkin and all of them. But it's like, that kind of exemplifies how a lot of the voices in Chicago that are screaming and yelling, you don't see them, right? We hear them. If you're listening, like if you like music, you listen for the bass part. You listen for the drum part. You focus your hearing. And you're like, oh, everyone's watching the lead singer, but damn, that back line is awesome, right? And that back line is the thunder from down under. It's the beat that keeps the music going. And so in Chicago, it's like this crazy thing. And we call it the Great American City. I didn't make that up. There's an old line from who knows where, Carl Sandburg or somebody, that said, New York is the greatest city in the world. But Chicago's the greatest American city. We'll take it, right? We're the second city. And so we have this feeling like we got something to prove. And it comes from this really crazy pioneer spirit of America, which was beautiful and inspiring and DIY, but it was also, kicking the ass of anybody that's in your way, including Native Americans or anybody. So it's a complicated, and this city's so real, Chicago, and it's mentioned in one of the episodes of the movie when Chase Smith, who is Rhymefest, is out on the street with a megaphone in episode 5 during the Black Lives Matter protest, and he says, this city was founded by DuSable. Jean-Baptiste DuSable was from Haiti, African origin, French speaking. He's the founder of Chicago. We have a black beginning, okay? John Kinsey and all that stuff, that came later, okay? Those were the settlers, all right? So the city of Chicago is a city founded by, and Jean-Baptiste, who was a French fur trapper from Haiti of African origin, he's not an African-American, right? Okay? It was pre-America, right? So before our country, this idea of what an American is, and this is an issue that Kartemkin Films, all right, has been dealing with throughout their history. It's like before there was an America, there were people, and these people came and formed us, and the white Europeans took over every time, the history, whatever. So it's kind of crazy when you live in Chicago. We grew up with Curtis Mayfield, man. We grew up with the Dells, and we grew up with the 5 Stair Steps, and we grew up with Mavis Staples. We grew up in a soul city, man, right? And that city, though, comes from the South, moving up from the Great Migration. I know I'm going there, right? I'm like, but you cannot. And so the Great Migration that comes from all over the world, sure, it's from Ireland and Italy and Poland, and we love the internationalism of Chicago. But the real foundation of the music is gospel, blues, jazz, soul, all that came up from New Orleans, by the way. I'm sorry they're not here, but don't you know that we never stop making that connection, those of us that live here. And when we hear the horn of the trumpet, we're like, oh yeah, Louis Armstrong came up here in the 1920s, all right? And so, and he kind of built his rep in Chicago before he went to New York. So anyway, that might seem all over the map, but if you notice, even in the trailer, and the actual series is 5 hours long, in only 1 minute, you saw a mariachi band. You saw a blues player. Even Willie Wilson, one of the candidates running for mayor, he's a gospel singer too. And he owns a bunch of McDonald's, okay? So everyone's gigging in Chicago, but everybody's either listening to music, checking out music. That's the rhythm of our city. That's the rhythm of our place. And so it's stunning to many of us over history that we're like, how are you talking about politics, but your political campaign events start with music? How are you doing? It's everywhere. It's so over sensory in Chicago, the music. All right. And so, anyway, sorry, I'll stop there.
No, you're good. You're good. And for our audience, they should know that Tim, you and I have known each other for longer than we'd probably care to admit. And you have instructed me to rein you in if you get on a tangent. So if anybody in the audience thinks I'm being rude to Tim by reining him in a minute, just know that this is how we roll. But I want to ask you, in the context of the program, City So Real is sort of documenting a critical moment for the Hideout, and using that as part of, again, the broader story of all these other things that are happening, across the city during this mayoral election. We've talked a lot in this program, we've talked a lot over the last couple of years about the growing appreciation and awareness for, whether you call them grassroots music venues, whether you call them neighborhood music venues. Just talk a tiny bit about what is distinctive about the Hideout. Why is a Hideout so beloved, not only in Chicago, but why does it have this international reputation? And what were the challenges that you faced in terms of the city that, again, are documented in this docuseries, but are sort of, the tension of navigating literally development and, competitive infrastructure. So Hideout, real quick, what's unique about the Hideout? And then what was the challenge that you were having to face that gets documented in this film?
So a kind of subliminal undertone, kind of philosophy in Chicago that sometimes you see it in a big way, sometimes little. We have this thing where we're an American city. So we have, for instance, Daniel Burnham was one of the designers of the city, and he said, make no small plans, okay? So we built, Grant Park and Lincoln Park and Jackson Park and boulevards and a grand plan, right? We built the tallest skyscrapers in the world, right? At the time, the Sears Tower, the Willis Tower. We built the busiest airport in the world, O'Hare Airport. We have the largest water reclamation district in the world, okay? So we pride ourselves in building big. We call ourselves the city of big shoulders, all right? City of broad shoulders, right? And so we love big and strong, okay? But there's this thing, and I know everything I'm talking about is a reflection of America, the world in general. But in Chicago, we believe in this idea also. Tallest building in the world, ironically, is a style, international style, Mies van der Rohe, who came here, who said less is more, okay? Get rid of all the frilly stuff. That's just kind of imperialistic, ancient, let's strip it down to steel and glass, okay? We're the city of Frank Lloyd Wright, who believed in organic architecture. Use the materials that you have locally, and then, those things. So we believe in the storefront church. We believe in the local diner, the local restaurant. I know other cities do too. We just happen to be, New York is the largest population, LA second, Chicago's third. So we're always so we know that Cleveland and in Detroit and in St. Louis, they got a lot of this happening too. But we see ourselves as really identifying with these kind of things because of kind of our size and magnitude. So we actually believe in the local joint, the neighborhood bar, the corner tavern. So we think you know what? Down in the skyscrapers, those idiots don't understand us. In fact, they look down upon us. But I do work in welding and I will help build that building. We build the actual structures that oppress us. And then we go to our neighborhood tavern and we bitch about that, or we organize. So we're a union town. And we're if we're going to build it, we need to get money. If we're going to be teachers, we have one of the most powerful, strongest local unions in the country. If we're going to be musicians, we're a community. We actually in Chicago, we always love the fact that when people talk about New York and LA, all right, they're just oh, it's so competitive there. It's out of control, man, right? But in Chicago, if you're a comedian, and I know there's assholes everywhere, all right? But a lot of times people are hey, I'm doing a show over at the Hideout. I'm doing a set at Cole's. Come on over and jump in and do a bit, all right? If you're a musician, We are always doing collaborations. I mean, this week, Josh Caterer from the Smoking Popes was with John San Juan, and he was with John Perrin. They put a thing together. He's from NRBQ. They put a trio together. Why? Because we're in quarantine. Let's like do some cover versions, you know? So we always have a community, an organizing, a sense of coming together. That's why the last president, he was a community organizer, and he became president. This president, he's the guy who lives up in the penthouse in New York City, top down, right? Complete opposites. And so in Chicago, our musicians, we love the fact you come from the street. Never forget that. That's who we are. So even if you become Chance the Rapper, even if you become Kanye, who we love, okay, he comes from us. But he went to LA with the Kardashians, right? We know this shit happens, right? We're happy, but we're very upset. We care about you. We want to help, all right? So, but it's like, I don't know if this makes sense, but what is the Hideout? The Hideout's nothing. The Hideout's a dive. The Hideout is a little bar on a side street, Wabansia Street, in an industrial area. So what? It's been there since the 1880s. Okay, that's old, right? It's an old house. We believe that with nothing in a place like that, that's where the real beauty and magic happens. And it's not magic. People come together in humble abodes. You call it a dive. We say, yeah, we're a dive because we're deep. Because we dig down deep, man. If you're a record collector, you love to take a deep dive, right? You know? So we look at dives so we don't look at a dive in Chicago as a bad thing. We look at it as a jewel, okay? As a treasure. So anyway, what's the Hideout? We're a nondescript place, a house, right? But inside, and it's the same looking place that it's been since the 1930s, okay? And it's been called the Hideout since it was made legal in 1934, all right? And before that, it wasn't legal. It was a public house, all right? And we just went ahead, and they just went ahead and did it. So little storefronts, little neighborhood taverns, little places like that, people come together, they talk. They're like, let's do a band. But in Chicago, we organize. So we organize a band. And then people start to make music. You know, there's a beautiful new book out right now by Jeff Tweedy from Wilco. And he just like did his little thing at the Hideout the other night with Nick Offerman. And it's just called How to Write One Song, okay? And we're very lucky because we live in a city. Jeff Tweedy lives here and a bunch of the members of Wilco and a bunch of that whole group of people made this, right? Who all like kind of interact. And that's a classic example of an interaction that people in other cities might know about, right? And what he is saying, like you sit in a bar, you sit in a place, you get together with your friends and you're like, hey, that would be a funny joke. Hey, let's make a movie about that. Hey, let's do a song. Hey, let's make an album. Let's make, because Chicago is a manufacturing city. So the Hideout is a simple little place located in an industrial area. You might not ever see it. Just like in the movie, just like in the series, City's So Real, what is real? Is it the big, tall skyscrapers you see? Or is it the thing that's growing underground? Is it the roots? So we're the roots. We're down there, okay? We're the seeds, okay? You don't always see it, but it's the most fertile thing in the world. And that's what Illinois is known for, the most fertile soil in the world, all right? And if you do that right, if you take care of that garden, and we are called in Herbs and Hortus, the Garden City is our nickname. If you can fertilize and manage that garden, you can create beautiful, beautiful things. And it all comes from the grassroots, from the ground up, okay? So we're one of that. So the Hideout's just one. The members of Civil, the Chicago Independent Venue League, that means that there are other places, the Empty Bottle, Reggie's, okay? Rosa's Lounge on the West Side, we're all part of that, okay? So together, we make this great city, right? But we're all there. But when you feel like you are alone, you're a flower that can wilt without water. But when you are together, then you're a bouquet, okay? So I can use a million cliches, obviously, but it's like, yeah. So so the Hideout is not so sometimes people go, you're a legacy, you know? We look at it like, nah, actually we're just a little footnote and a sentence. I got a line in that interview, okay? Or something like that. In the 5 hours of the City's So Real, you know, they filmed Katie and I and the Hideout for like 100 hours. Out of that, they got about 2 minutes, okay, of me screaming and yelling. All right. That always seems to come across well. Or it always seems whatever. It's a wake up in the middle of a 5-hour documentary. So my point is, I'm a little piece, but together, and this isn't a cliche, I'm not together. We have a million little pieces in Chicago, and they all come together, and that creates a mighty orchestra. All right. And if we do it together, like, it's like amazing. Sorry.
So no. So you mentioned Civil, the Chicago Independent Venue League, which came out of the crisis. That's very nice. Came out of the crisis, which is documented in the nice. I like that.
This is Washington, D.C. glass I got from Jeff Custer in Washington, D.C. There's D.C. And he's at Hellbender Brewing, which is my favorite little brewery in D.C. And I am going to now take a Civil beer that Goose Island in Chicago has made to raise money for the Chicago Independent Venue League. And I'm going to pour it into this glass. This is the high school teacher in me.
There you go.
I'm going to show how together the glass is full.
That's
right.
And Friday has started. Very nice. We've opened up Friday. All right. So quickly. All right, let's get through speed round here because there's a bunch of things I want to make sure we get to before we move into a DJ Ambush's segment. So Civil comes together. So Chicago's got this amazing network of independent venues, probably more so than any major city, in the country in terms of being able to fight off the sort of massive consolidation of venues and promotions. So this is kind of organic independent network, or not this organic network of independent venues that are neighborhood based and being able to, stay afloat and potentially thrive. So the city makes a big move though, a couple of years ago that necessitates the creation of Civil. Talk a little bit about what the city was up to and why it was critical for the venues to come together and unite for the first time and to speak with one voice.
So in Chicago, as in America, we are in this conflict right now, okay? And the conflict is whether small is beautiful or bigger is better, okay? Now, all of us indie rock people know bigger isn't better. As a matter of fact, once a band gets big, we don't like them anymore, right? So, but I know, you know what? Chicago, second city, we're comedians. And if we're not comedians, we all think we can be funny, okay? I mean, literally, the way that we think in Chicago, I love that Dessa song, okay, that she just did. But when I saw Tyranny, Tyranny, Tyranny coming across, I immediately, in my mind, I said, Melania Trump only had Barron, but had she had a girl, it'd be called Tyranny Trump, all right? Tiffany was already named by Marla Maples, okay? Anyway, Tyranny Trump, the daughter that Melania never had. So that's the kind of way we think. We make fun of people in power. Okay. We love to do that. A lot of us. All right. And we get mad in Chicago, especially when you sell out, to the big corporation. But at the same time, Chicago's an American city. So we are in competition with the rest of the richest country on the earth to obtain the most corporate headquarters of anybody, right? So the Lincoln Yards project exemplifies that concept. Lincoln Yards is literally designed after Hudson Yards. They always call it yards. The only things called yards are prison yards and huge mega developments. So in New York City, and if New York's got it, there's always people in Chicago that are like, well, then we ought to get that. And word thought in Chicago is like, all the comedians on Saturday Night Live are from Chicago. We send it to New York, okay? We don't need their stuff here, okay? They're lucky that we provide them with the greatest, musicians and the greatest artists and comedians. Anyway, so the Lincoln Yards project modeled after Hudson Yards and Nashville Yards in Nashville, and the other projects in Los Angeles, Dallas, and Austin that they build are the classic example of these mega developments that developers come to a city and they say, look, we want to build billions of dollars worth of tall buildings. Would you like that in your city? Because if you do, give us money. You give us $1 billion, we'll give you $5 billion. How's that sound? Okay. I'm not making that up, okay? That's what Amazon said. Amazon HQ too. They said to America, you give us everything and we'll choose one of your cities. And Chicago really wanted that because there are some people in Chicago that actually believe that is a good thing. So the Amazon HQ2 deal that happened a few years ago, Chicago decided to sell over 50 acres of its property so that they could prepare for the Lincoln Yards development. And that is, so I don't want to go all off on this, but the point is, the city tore down a number of factories and made way to create a huge 50-acre space so that Amazon HQ2 could move in. Amazon didn't come. Okay, they decided to fake us out. In fact, they decided not even to go to Washington, D.C. I think they decided to go to Northern Virginia. Okay, all right, and a little bit of Nashville. And for a while, they even talked about going to Queens until AOC took over. So the thing is that now we had this space. A developer, Sterling Bay, took it over. They bought it. They said that they would build 12 buildings that exceed 45 stories with a 65-story iconic tower. And the city then put together a deal so that they would get over $1 billion in tax increment financing. The Hideout is located 25 feet from that development. And so the Hideout, literally, we were just like, this is bullshit, right? And anyway, if we're going to build a $5 billion project, let's do it like Daniel Burnham did. The World's Fair was on the south side. Let's develop the entire south side of Chicago, the entire west side of Chicago. Why are you sticking it in between Lincoln Park and Bucktown? But they insisted, they pushed it through. And on the last meeting of Rahm Emanuel, when he was mayor, they got it through, okay? So in the meantime, what the Hideout did, what Katie came up with was, you know what? One little bar can't stand against a $5 billion development, but 30 bars can, 30 venues can. We united, all right? And we united and we said this development was going to include the Live Nation Mega Center. And that mega center was going to have 6 different auditoriums, ranging in size from 20,000 to 5,000 to 1,000, down to a 100-person comedy club across the street from the Hideout. And we're like, why would the city subsidize an outside company building a massive development when you already have these treasures, these gems all throughout the city? So that started Chicago Independent Venue League way back in 2018. The show, the documentary City So Real shows that. And that later on, when the pandemic happened, we were already organized together, which is an amazing thing. And then we helped to work with the people in Washington and New York and the National Independent Venue Association. It isn't because of us, but it's part of a nationwide movement of small and independent venues that were feeling that same kind of situation, the onslaught of huge corporate development into their cities.
And I think, Tim, that's what's so important about the work that you and Katie and your entire crew in Chicago did. A lot of people put a lot of work into trying to think about what does it mean to come together as a network? What does it mean to try to put together a political agenda? What does it mean to take on really difficult odds in terms of a really tough political fight? But it really did provide sort of a template that when NEVA came together to respond to the global crisis, that, there was a lot of learnings from what you had done sort of, almost as a proof of concept in Chicago that then could be taken to scale. And I know that you guys have been, very active in NEVA, which is I've said on the show repeatedly, I think the Save Our Stages campaign is, clearly the most effective music advocacy effort I've seen in 22 years of doing this work, but I just love the through line again to, this notion of the Hideout, really representing what a lot of us would like to think of the best of music in terms of community, in terms of, being a platform, not only for music and for comedy, but also for political organizing, for nonprofits, really being a resource for the community. And then really taking that lead, which again, I think is documented, very nicely in this program, helping take that lead to say, well, we have to be able to fight for this. This means something, and it's not just about economics. This is about something bigger.
It is something bigger, and it's not about economics. And I think it's important to note that this pandemic, the shutdown, caused a lot of us to really unite and organize together. We had time to talk, right? And so when you look at Katie Tuten, my partner, okay, and you look at how she was just named to the Venues 2020 All-Star list, which is Polestar, along with Dana Frank, who is the president of NEVA. Katie and Dana are both on that list. The other 49 people are our Live Nation senior vice president. It's the guy who runs the Dodgers, the person who runs it's all massive 50,000 capacity stadiums and convention centers. And then there's two people, Dana Frank from First Avenue in Minnesota, and Katie Tuten, who is from the Hideout. What it has done, it is showing the big city developers and the big time operators, there is a movement across the city of over 3,000 independent venues, and it got loud. And this Save Our Stages actually sent a message to Washington. They expected to get 50,000 emails. They got over 2 million. The people, so it is an example that a grassroots organizer like Barack Obama can go on to become president. That's how we think in Chicago. And then we think that like a little dive bar in Chicago, if we talk to another local place in 930 Club in DC, I know that's not a dive, it's much bigger. All right, in the First Avenue in Minneapolis, if we got to unite together, we can send a message to these people, okay? That your stadiums and your mega developments, actually, they don't add to the quality of life of a big city. And actually, they're not an economically intelligent thing to do. And that's where they always look at the money. And when they looked at us united, they were like, holy geez, the 35 venues in Chicago have 3 million customers. They have 70,000 employees year round. That's what this kind of thing, this pandemic showed them. And so some city, especially local political leaders, they started saying, geez, I don't have a stadium in my ward, but I do have 5 music venues. Yep. Maybe I need to think about that. So we are trying, there are 2 people out of 50 that are like on the Venue All-Stars. But what it's saying is there is a movement and there is a rethinking. What are cities for? Okay. Are they for big mega developments or are they for neighborhood development to make a quality of life? So that's why the little dive bar, the little local place, the corner tavern, it's dangerous. And it's important because people intrinsically feel connected to it the way they don't feel and the way the corporations don't feel to us, right? So we're in this thing right now, okay? Yep. It is a really important economic and cultural transformational moment here. Yep. How are we going to come out of this pandemic? Okay, if we could save our stages, we're really saying you're acknowledging the significance of independent creative culture. Okay. And okay, sorry. Yeah.
No, Tim, it's always great to see you, and thank you so much for sharing everything. And we got through roughly 30% of the questions that we had planned, but we will have you back when in the new year and talk about 2021 plans. Okay. Give our love to Katie and the team there at the Hideout. And
total love, Michael. And I just want to really say what you have been doing for years, Future Music Coalition. When we talk about, hey, we've been talking to Austin and New Orleans, and we've been talking to the folks in Minneapolis, and the reason we know them is because of what you have done. You brought everyone together before any of this happened years ago. So, and I'm not just saying this, right? The Future Music Coalition from the last 12, 15 years, you guys have been pulling venues together, and now we're in this moment. So it's another example of how people think this stuff just happened. This conversation's been going on for a long time. And because you built up such a strong community and network of people, now we have a national network, which is influential and essential. Okay.
Thank you, Tim. That's very kind of you to say. It's not me. It takes a village. But thank you. All right.
So we are the Village Tap, the Village Bar, the local village. Oh, wait. We're the local bar of the global village, right?
There it is. Right. All righty. Thank you, Tim. And I'm thrilled now to welcome DJ Ambush. Ambush, how are you? Let's see. I think you are.
I'm pretty good, man. I'm pretty good. Forgive me if it jumps around a little bit. The Wi-Fi here has been a little sketchy during this week. We're still getting us settled here at the museum, but however, hear me pretty clear.
Sounds good. Well, we were really excited a couple weeks ago to feature some of your Portland colleagues, and you weren't able to join us on that particular program. But we're really excited to have you here because you're doing really important work, which actually dovetails, I think, in a really dramatic way with some of the stuff that Tim was just talking about how do we think about music in the broader context of community. And just to kind of kick off, let us know about the Numberz. Tell us about Numberz FM and kind of what you're doing in Portland.
So before I jump directly into that, first, thank you for this opportunity. I really, I look forward to every opportunity to engage with you guys, especially since DC and the big forum. That was really, really great. And I love how you started this conversation with music. That's what this is about. We got that presentation, and then to follow up and say, we're coming from a pretty progressive standpoint here. So if this isn't your wheelhouse, you might want to log out and check us out a little bit later. And it's important that we're just honest. It really is. It's important that we're honest with everyone. If you're not using your creativity, you're not using your platform to be as honest and genuine as possible, then what are we doing? What are we doing here? So the Numberz is a really interesting opportunity that I found myself in. I moved out here. I am from the East Coast. Moved out here from Philly about 4 years ago. I've been DJing for 27 years. And if you asked me before coming out here, you have any interest in going into radio? Absolutely not. No, I'm not doing that. I've been able to survive as a DJ for this long without having someone tell me what music to play. With the commercial radio stations, absolutely not. Moving to Portland was a really interesting re-education for me as far as the racial dynamic here, because of the circumstances in which I moved here and the community that I was able to develop just visiting over the years. I wasn't aware until maybe after 3 years of visits that this was literally the whitest city in America. I had known. It felt like an East Coast suburb. That was it. So once I laid roots here and started, developing myself as a DJ, rebranding, building connections, getting in clubs again, working some contacts. It was at that point that I understood what Black media looked like and felt like here. There was this cavern, it was wide open. It didn't exist. What communities of color were used to was 2 or 3 hours on the radio on this particular station, and primarily community-based stations. The top 40 stations here, they weren't doing it. They weren't doing this any justice. And then, what we're used to anyway is these corporations telling us what the Black music experience is. And that's whatever's on Billboard charts right now. It's not holistic in any shape, form, or fashion. So again, I started out strictly as just a DJ providing some content for this radio station when they started about 2.5 years ago. And then I saw an opportunity to really help it develop. I'm currently at the helm now as the operations and content manager for the Numberz 96.7. So we have a small FM transmission that hits Northeast Portland really, really well, and then parts of North Portland. But we try to urge everyone just to go to the website, press the big play button, and stream us, all over the country, all over the world. Just tune in. And some of the greatest compliments I've gotten, especially early on, was someone that was just in town, just trying to find something to listen to. They were in town from Boston. And when they tuned in, they said, this feels like New York, old school New York radio. Nice. So that was like, oh, okay, that was my first Grammy. Thank you. Feels great. Growing up listening to Stretch and Bandito, that's a huge accomplishment. That's a huge accomplishment for me. So it was really, really dope to be able to come in. Again, being an East Coast person, my relationship with music really developed late 80s, early 90s. So I'm bringing that to the table. And it was refreshing to be received that well with, over here on the West. So from a music standpoint, we're doing great. We're killing it. Everyone loves the content. But the other side of that is those 3 minutes that we use, the 3 minutes of commercials at the end of every hour. We're engaging with the community. We're talking to members of the community about, jobs, home ownership, any type of training screenings that are available. Right now, any COVID relief that's available. We try to make sure we're offering free ad space and advertising to small businesses, Black businesses. We've developed talk content now. So Sundays, we have about a good 4 to 5 hours of talk content. It's really about carving out a space that never existed for communities of color here in Portland. Again, I don't want to keep harping on this, but being on the East Coast, community radio stations, they're all over the place. You know, for someone to have an internet radio station, there's like 2 or 3 of those on a block in Philadelphia. Like everyone's doing it. So to be able to come here, again, fully represent the Black music experience, playing everything from, in the middle of the day, we're playing anything from MF Doom to Anita Baker, you know, and just to be able to do that and then, you know, switch over and hit them with some conversations that reflect the things that are happening here on the ground. Because of the protest and the national spotlight that's happening here, there are a lot of different agencies that want to tell the story, and it's an inaccurate one. I have family members that have been calling me, friends that have been checking on me. Is the city burning? What's happening? Are you okay? And it's like, it's 3 blocks over there, downtown. That's it. That's it. The rest of us are still dealing with trying to survive, avoid COVID and make sure our bills get paid, you know? So the Numberz has played a really, really integral part in trying to reconnect communities that have been spread out because of gentrification and the other racial dynamics that have existed here in Portland all this time. So it's been amazing. Some of the partnerships that we've developed, I think, are a direct reflection of this need that has existed for a long time. People have just been coming at us from Oregon Health Share, David Douglas School District. We have everything from small businesses all the way to where I am now at the Portland Art Museum that have just understood what the mission is. They want to get involved, and they've been doing every single thing they can. My relationship with Music Portland is one that I treasure greatly. I don't know if Mira's in here somewhere, but she's a gem. And being able to engage with artists, on one level, with consulting and development and some of the things I used to do in my past, Music Portland facilitates that for me. Mira and the crew over there is very passionate about making sure that artists are represented and not just who shows up. She makes a point to scan the room and say, there aren't enough this type of artists in the room. This genre isn't properly represented. This racial dynamic isn't properly represented. This sex, this gender isn't properly represented. And I love that. I love that. And being able to, you know, pair some of those initiatives and some of those concerns, what we're doing on the radio, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So as I stated before, we're here in the Portland Art Museum. This relationship started out with a Hank Willis Thomas exhibit back in 2019. He's an East Coast artist based out of New York. If anyone's been to Philadelphia, there's that big Afro pic at City Hall. That's him. And one of the employees had been just listening to the radio and really enjoying it and figured out, hey, when Hank gets here, let's get him to do an interview with the Numberz. So we facilitated that and created a community playlist around him, put some of the songs that inspire him and put that stuff in rotation. And then we did a live activation here at the museum where we had a couple of different booths. I performed live, did a DJ set for, I think it was a 3-hour set. We had little interview station to the left where we were talking to people that were walking the exhibit and just getting some feedback from them on that. And then also we were doing a community playlist workshop on the other side of the room. And I'm sorry, I need to come back around and explain what the community playlists are, because that's a really excellent initiative that one of our admin staff created. And it's primarily how I got involved with the station. But so we started there with that. And the reaction that we got from the museum staff was like, this is amazing. We've never had this type of engagement in here. You know, we're seeing so many new faces. You know, so many people are feeling welcome. Communities of color are feeling welcome. And that flourished into a couple more activations. And then finally they were like, hey, you know, if you guys want to come through and do a residency, you know, let's carve out some 2-week window and let's do that. Cool. That was the beginning of September. We had identified the last 2 weeks of September to do the residency. And if my calendar serves me correct, we're going into November and we're still here. Yeah. They've invited us to stay indefinitely, actually. Nice. They've given us the 4th floor in their second building. We'll be moving into that next week. So at this point, it's just a culmination of 2 years of really, really great work, working with excellent partners, and being given the opportunity to boost voices of color here in Portland. And it's really, 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 really important. I can't even stress how important it's been. Yeah.
So I've got a couple that's all so fascinating to me. And there are a couple pieces I still want to explore, you know, in our remaining time. One is, you know, we've featured a lot of conversations around the role of public and non-commercial media, you know, throughout these programs this year. And you know, clearly, you know, just the distinction and mission between, again, what is, you know, commercial media exists to maximize, you know, eyeballs or audiences in a certain demographic to get as much advertising revenue as you can. And that's what they do. And that's their job. Right. And non-com fundamentally has a different mission in terms of we have something that we think is of value to the public that we want to bring forward. And I think there's some tension, and I don't want to, you know, you can take this however you want to take it in terms of an answer. You can punt if you want to. But I do feel like there's some really interesting tension in the sort of non-commercial radio community around the next evolution of non-com, particularly radio. It's happening in TV as well. But and I think one way we're looking at it is, you know, sort of one vision, which is recognizing that public radio, especially in the music side, has not been particularly effective in engaging with BIPOC audiences. And one potential solution is a format solution that we're going to sort of take what happens in, you know, kind of commercial or in AAA, and how some of that's worked its way into non-com, and we can kind of program or format our way out of it. The other is much more around leadership and sort of empowerment of like who gets to make decisions.
Right.
And, you know, clearly you guys are.
So I would definitely say yes, the latter of the two has been what's been proven to be more effective. So right along the lines with that, we have a community playlist campaign. It started out, one of the admin staff reached out to me when I was just doing DJ mixes and said, hey, listen, what we've been trying to do is identify members of the community, activists, tastemakers, small business owners, local politicians. We reach out to them, we ask them, what are the songs that move you? What are the songs that drive you? We create an hour-long playlist out of it. We get some drops from them, you know, just introducing themselves and letting people know they're listening to the songs they selected. And we put that out in the community as a way for the community to hear and see themselves in this. And then on the talk side of that, we were able to identify some local podcasters or some local content creators, which was excellent in giving them a platform. But for me, what's been really great is the shows that we developed just from people saying, hey, I got something to say, and I don't know how to say it. That's fine. Come here. We have the ability to record, edit, and put your stuff on the air. We turn the content over to you. We show you how to handle distribution for your podcast and for your content, and giving you some ownership. And when you're ready to learn how to edit, when you're ready to learn how to record, we'll give you that information too. We'll train you in that aspect. So I think it's one thing to attack it from a format standpoint. And there was a part of me initially that had to fight trying to duplicate what I've experienced, you know, on the commercial side of things, and really look at this as the bullhorn that it should be for the community.
Right.
Yeah. So it's one thing for me to say, hey, everyone listen to these Black and brown voices. And another thing for me to say, move out of the way, not be the gatekeeper, and say, hey, what do you say it? Yeah. You do your own thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, to kind of tie a bow on this a little bit in terms of some of the things that you've been saying and how it connects to Tim and even to Dessa in terms of all today's program. I mean, I think, the challenge that I think we've all faced collectively in 2020 is this notion that, again, it's not enough to quote unquote rebuild the music community or the music industry. It really is authentically reimagining. And I think a lot of what, we've seen from Portland and unfortunately we don't have time to kind of go through this stuff in detail, but certainly in terms of the participation as a Revs pilot city and things like that is that this city is, in that, Music Portland and your work and the work of many others is deeply entrenched and sort of hardwired into these broader conversations about what is our city and what should we be and what can we be and who gets to make those decisions. And part of what is really heartening about the work that we do is we see these parallel conversations happening right now in Louisville. They're happening in DC. They're happening all across the country where the music community is deeply hardwired into those bigger, broader, conversations where this is not, again, about, music community. Many leaders in music communities, I think Music Portland, I think hopefully would identify with the statement is, clearly a lot of the work is about sustainability of music scenes, about compensation structures, about how do you make a living, how do you all the sort of, bread and butter issues around music and music industry stuff. But it also is really, taking on this broader conversation or trying to engage with this broader conversation in ways that are really inspiring. And, I think the goal for all of us, again, is, this notion that at some point we're going to be in another end of the pandemic. I mean, something's going to change at some point. We're going to be doing some normal things. And what is the infrastructure that we're, sort of building and investing in the meantime to put us in a position to do things differently. And, not to use Biden's cliche, but build back better that's kind of what it's all about to a large extent. So Ambush, I'm sorry that we're sort of at time. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with here? So Alex put the link to the Numberz in the chat. Totally encourage everybody to check that stuff out and check out all the work that Ambush and Mira and Lori and everybody's doing at Music Portland. It's really been inspiring for all of us. Any closing thoughts for us today?
No, that was pretty much it. Definitely, guys, awesome. Check out the Numberz. Follow us on social media. We love the feedback. We are finally at a place now where the majority of our content is pre-recorded. We do live activations here and there. I think we'll be starting out the new year with a lot more live content. So all the feedback that we can get from you guys, it's just amazing. And thank you again, Michael, for this opportunity.
Of course, Ambush. It's great to see you. And thanks again to Dessa and to Tim and Alex for producing today. And thanks for all of you who are spending your Friday with us. We really appreciate it. This show will be on our archive. If you saw something you like today and you want to send to your friends and put on social, feel free. It'll be on YouTube this weekend. Good luck with Halloween. Everybody stay safe, stay distanced. Everybody go vote. And we'll be back next Friday to just figure out what we got to talk about next week. So, all righty, guys. Thanks, everybody.
I know.
Appreciate your time. Cheers.